So what is up, guys? Today I plan on doing a Titans video. I had a request, so shout out to Oliver. And I've kind of put this video off because I do think Titans is a long conversation. I have feelings about Titans. But, you know, I do want to start off by saying that I am not an expert at Titans. I don't think that Titans is the best use of resources for the most part. I do think a lot of the things that they give you to do Titans is definitely worth running, but I think building all those monsters just to throw into Titans and not using them for anything else is a little bit of a waste. I think that there are a few monsters that players do benefit from building specifically for Titans, but they're few and far between. In general, I think that as long as you build your courageous strikers, you kind of have a nice set of healers, then you're on the right track. But there are two general builds that I know of for Titans, and other players may have other builds that work better for them. Like I said, I'm not an expert on Titans. This is just how I set my teams up generally. But in general, the two builds that I'm familiar with is you can do a kind of status effect team on the left side, and then you can have a DPS team on the right side, and that way you know that your status effects will go first, and generally they're a little bit tankier. So since they're going to get hit first on the left side, they're more likely to be able to tank the first attack, whereas your DPS team on the right side can kind of come in and do more damage because Death Down from your left side should already be on the monster, ideally as long as it doesn't resist and as long as it procs. So that's one way to do it, where you have your left side, which is your status effects, and then you have your right side, which is DPS. So you try to land attack down and death down in the beginning, and you can consider and then maybe on your light and dark Titan you will throw in something that has blind on it on its first skill. Those are that's one way to build your team. And then also you think of dispersing a healer or two somewhere in between those two teams. The other way to do it is to kind of mix your team. So instead of having dedicated units on each side, what you would do is you kind of have your DPS and your status effects and your healers dispersed through both sides, and that's one way to do it as well. Personally, like I was kind of saying in the beginning, I do think it is a little bit of a waste to invest a lot into monsters specifically for Titans, and that's just because a lot of the monsters that do well in Titans, there's really no other place for them that I know of in the game. For the most part, being able to, you really want to have teams that are dedicated to something, and I think that a lot of the monsters you build for PvE actually will play can also be used in your Titans team. As maybe filler DPS. So, some of the monsters that I have I may have retired because I have better monsters to run certain PvE content. They're just sitting there 6-star, not doing anything. And, those are the kind of monsters I consider throwing into as fillers for my Titans team, as opposed to, trying to just build something specifically for Titans and only Titans. Of course, with the exception of monsters with Courageous Strike, because Courageous Strike just, vastly improves the amount of damage you do in Titans. That it's pretty obvious that skill was intended for Titans specifically, and I think that's kind of seen at when the Pinellos, for the first monsters we saw at Courageous Strikes, when they were released, and they were released roughly around the time that we actually received Titans, and so it was pretty obvious that they were geared toward that content, and so players who did not have the opportunity to obtain the Wood Pinello, or even some even players who may have only obtained one, they're at a slight disadvantage when it comes to people who did happen to get the Pinellos. And also the same goes for the two Venuses, so the Light and Dark Venus. It's pretty clear now, looking back, that more than likely they released the Venus in order to support the upcoming Titan events, because the Venus actually performs her skill slightly different when compared to other healers, and that's because they will actually go ahead and use their heals even before your monsters have been damaged, and that's really interesting because no other healer in the game will do that. They wait until you've got some damage on your team before they will actually proc their heals. Definitely those are some things to think about, and just like I said, I am not an expert on Titans. I'm just here to kind of give some tips, and I really hope that this kind of helped you think more about your teams, and if it did help you, then definitely like and subscribe and leave me a comment, and I will see you in the next video.